right, are we live? Looks like it will give people a second to pop in. Hopefully, I accidentally went live earlier and there was a bunch of people in here and I was like, oh no, and I just turned the stream off. Hopefully they'll come back. But I only get so many notifications in a day, so it may be lonesome. I hope not, because this is the final chapter of book 2 of Transcendental Magic, and it has been an incredible journey through this book. One of the most interesting literary experiences of my entire life, I would say, and I'm sure that that is going to continue up until the very last word. The first part was more or less about the tarot, but not in the way that pop culture has portrayed the tarot. It's much more sophisticated than just a simple tool for divination and entertainment. And the symbolism of the deck that he described, and in particular a couple of the cards, was absolutely remarkable. So in this section, the second half of the last chapter, we are going to get into the Kabbalistic symbolism of the Book of Revelation. And beyond that, I think it just goes into the random bits of esoteric, hermetic knowledge that he considered relevant. Let me check in with the chat real quick and make sure that we're all good, and then we'll dive right in. Okay, how's it going, guys? Let me know if the audio, everything seems to be okay, so we'll go ahead. All right, so I'm going to start kind of a little bit before we left off, just so we have some context. It was at the epic of the Gnostic and Manichaean heresies that the tarot, let's make it bigger. What happened to my cursor? There we go. So I get one more. There we go. It was at the epoch of the Gnostic and Manichaean heresies that the tarot must have been lost to the church, at which time also the meaning of the divine apocalypse perished. It was understood no longer that the 7 seals of this Kabbalistic book are 7 pentacles, the representation of which we give on page 376, and that these pentacles are explained by the analogies of the numbers, characters, and figures of the tarot. Thus, the universal tradition of the one religion was a moment broken. Darkness or doubt spread over the whole earth, and it seemed in the eyes of ignorance that true Catholicism, the universal revelation, had briefly disappeared. The explanation of the Book of St. John by the characters of the Kabbalah will be an entirely new revelation, though foreseen by several distinguished magi, one of whom, M. Augustine Chaho, thus expresses himself. The poem of the Apocalypse presupposes in the young evangelist a complete system and traditions individually developed by himself. It is written in the form of a vision and binds in a brilliant framework of poetry the whole erudition, the whole thought of African civilization. An inspired bard, the author touches upon a series of ruling events. He draws in bold outlines the history of society from cataclysm to cataclysm and even further still. The truths which he reveals are prophecies brought from far and wide, of which he is the resounding echo. He is the voice which cries, the voice which chants the harmonies of the desert and prepares the paths for the light. His speech peals forth with mastery and compels faith, for he carries among savage nations the oracles of Io, and unveils himself, who is the firstborn of the sun, for the admiration of civilizations to come. One thing I want to mention before we continue on is that there is this idea amongst these lineages, or this lineage, which has become lineages, I guess, that man had the truth, and wandering long in the darkness of superstition and folly, he found error. Albert Pike wrote something like that in his Morals and Dogma. And I believe this to be very likely true. He also makes references to cataclysms, the idea that there's been resets on human civilization multiple times already, and that they are generally the result of having lost the truth and found error. We are in the midst of one such transition at this moment. And the reason that I believe it is that, as far as I can tell, truth is hidden from no one. It's actually very evident, and it is discoverable. And all that it requires is a mind that is unfettered by indoctrination and undue influence from societal engineers, and some critical thinking capacity, open-mindedness, but not so open-minded that wind is whistling through your ears, and a desire to learn. I think that our natural disposition attenuates us to that orientation, which ultimately results in illumination. And the reason that we are not expressing this predisposition at the current juncture, by and large, is that there have been interference patterns introduced and distraction and occultation of our fundamental essence. So, and the word apocalypse, of course, just means revelation. So the prediction is that after a time of chaos and disruption, we would find a new order that would represent an evolutionary leap for humanity. The gradual reconstruction of primeval federations and of the reign of God among peoples emancipated from the yoke of tyrants and the bonds of error are clearly foretold for the end of the fourth age and the renovation of the cataclysm exhibited at first from afar, even unto the consummation of time. The description of the cataclysm and its duration, the new world emerging from the waves and spreading in all its beauty under heaven, the great serpent, bound for a time by an angel in the depths of the abyss, finally the dawn of that age to come, prophesied by the Word who appeared to the apostle at the beginning of his poem. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Such as Ormuz, Osiris, Churian, the Lamb, the Christ, the Ancient of Days, the Man of the Time, and the river celebrated by Daniel. He is the first and the last, who was, who must be, Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. He holds the key of mysteries in his hands. He opens the great abyss of the central fire, where death sleeps beneath his canopy of darkness, where sleeps the great serpent awaiting the awakening of the ages. And the author connects the sublime allegory of St. John with that of Daniel, wherein the 4 forms of the Sphinx are applied to the chief periods of history, where the man-son, the word light, consoles and instructs the seer. The prophet Daniel beholds a sea tossed by the 4 winds of heaven, and beasts differing one from another come out of the depths of the ocean. The empire of all things on earth was given them for a time, 2 times, and dividing of time. There are 4 who so come forth. The first beast, symbol of the solar race of seers, comes from the region of Africa, resembling a lion and having eagle's wings. The heart of a man was given it. The second beast, emblem of the northern conquerors who reigned by iron during the second age, was like unto a bear. It had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, images of the 3 great conquering families. And they said unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After the apparition of the 4th beast, there were thrones raised up, and the Ancient of Days, the Christ of seers, the Lamb of the first age, was manifested. His garment was of dazzling whiteness, his head radiant, his throne, whence came forth living flames, was borne upon burning wheels, a flame of swift fire shone in his countenance. Legions of angels or stars sparkled around him. It kind of sounds like it could be an extraterrestrial, right? The judgment was set. The allegorical books were opened. The new Christ came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. And there were given him power, honor, and kingdom over all peoples, tribes, and tongues. Then Daniel came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. And it was answered him that the 4 beasts were powers which would reign successively over the earth. M. Chaho proceeds to explain a variety of images, strikingly analogous, which are found in almost all sacred books. His observations at this point are worthy of remark. In every primitive logos, the parallel between physical correspondences and moral relations is established on the same roots. Each word carries its material and sensible definition, and this living language is as perfect and true as it is simple and natural in man the creator. Let the seer express by the same word, slightly modified, the sun, day, light, truth, and applying the same epithet to a white sun and to a lamb, let him say lamb or Christ instead of sun, and sun instead of truth, light, civilization. And there is no allegory, but there are true correspondences seized and expressed by inspiration. I don't really think I need to comment on that, do I? But when the children of night say in their incoherent and barbarous dialect, sun, day, light, truth, lamb, the wise correspondence so clearly expressed by the primitive logos becomes effaced and disappears. And by simple translation, the lamb and the sun become allegorical beings, symbols. Remark, in effect, that the word allegory itself signifies, in Celtic definition, change of discourse, translation. The observation we have made applies exactly to all barbarous cosmogonical language. Seers made use of the same inspired radical to express nourishment and instruction. Is not the science of truth the nourishment of the soul? Thus, the science of truth is the nourishment of the soul. Thus, the scroll of papyrus, or the book eaten by the prophet Ezekiel, the little volume which the angel gave as food to the author of the Apocalypse, the festivities of the magical palace of Asgard, to which Gangler was invited by Har the Sublime, the miraculous multiplication of 7 small loaves narrated by the evangelist of the Nazarene, the living bread which Jesus' son gave his disciples to eat, saying, "This is my body," and a host of similar occurrences are a repetition of the same allegory. The life of souls who are nourished by truth, truth which multiplies without ever diminishing, but on the contrary increases in the measure that it nourishes. Exalted by a noble sentiment of patriotism, dazzled by the idea of an immense revolution, let a revealer of hidden things come forward and seek to popularize the discoveries of science among gross and ignorant men. Destitute of the most simple elementary notions, let him say, for example, that the earth revolves and that it is shaped like an egg. What resource has the barbarian who hears him except to believe? It is not plain that every proposition of this nature becomes for him a dogma from on high, an article of faith? And is not the veil of a wise allegory sufficient to make it a mythos? In the school of seers, the terrestrial globe was represented by an egg of pasteboard or painted wood, and when the young children were asked, "What is this egg?" they answered, "It is the earth." Those older children, the barbarians, hearing this, repeated after the little children of the seers, "The world is an egg." But they understood thereby the physical material world, and the seers, the geographical ideal image world created by mind and the logos. As a fact, the priests of Egypt represented mind, intelligence, neph, with an egg placed upon his lips to express clearly that the egg was here only a comparison, an image, a modality of speech. Chomantu, the philosopher of the Azor Vedam, explains that the same manner to the fanatic Biash what must be understood by the golden egg of Brahma. We must not wholly despair of a period which still concerns itself with these serious and reasonable researches. We have cited these pages of M. Chaho with great mental satisfaction and profound sympathy. Here is no longer the negative and desolating criticism of Dupuis and Volney, but tendency towards one faith and one worship connecting all the future with all of the past. It is the exoneration of all great men falsely accused of superstition. It is finally the justification of God himself, that Son of intelligences, who is never veiled for just souls and pure hearts. Great and preeminent is the seer, the initiate, the elect of nature and of supreme reason, cries the author once more in concluding what we have just cited. His alone is that faculty of imitation which is the principle of his perfection, while its inspirations, swift as a lightning flash, direct creations and discoveries. His alone is a perfect word of conformity, propriety, flexibility, wealth, creating harmony of thought by physical reaction. of thought whereof the perceptions, still independent of language, ever reflect nature exactly reproduced in his impressions, well judged and well expressed in its correspondences. His alone is light, science, truth, because imagination, confined to its passive secondary part, never governs reason. The natural logic which results from the comparison of ideas which come into being extend in the same proportion as his needs, and because the circle of his knowledge enlarges thus by degrees without intermixture of false judgments and errors. His alone is a light infinitely progressive, because the rapid multiplication of population after terrestrial renovations composes in a few centuries a new society and all the imaginable moral and political correspondences of its destiny. And, we might add, his alone is absolute light. The man of our time is immutable in himself. He changes no more than nature, in which he is rooted. The social conditions which surround him alone determine the degree of his perfection, of which the bounds are virtue, holiness of man, and his happiness in the law. I was actually just writing about this morning, that we have this thing of like plastic shamans was the original thing that the post was predicated on Substack, by the way. Follow me there if you don't, because I'm more free to speak my mind, and it's a very supportive community of creators that are very highly intelligent, lots of really educated people with PhDs in various sciences that also still have an open mind, and it's a really good place to be. So check that out if you haven't already. But in looking for a solution to this, I came to the conclusion that these are the shaman of the United States, the plastic shaman for the plastic culture. And the only way to resolve the conflicts that we are experiencing is to make a fundamental change in the structure to re-engineer the culture, fundamentally. He said that here again. The social conditions which surround him alone determine the degree of his perfection, of which the bounds are virtue, holiness of man, and his happiness in the law. Of such elucidations, will anyone ask the utility of the occult sciences? Will they treat with the disdain of mysticism and illuminism these living mathematics, these proportions of ideas and forms, this revelation permanent in the universal reason, this emancipation of mind, this immutable basis provided for faith, this omnipotence revealed to will? Children in search of illusions, are you disappointed because we offer you marvels? Once a man said to us, "Raise up the devil and I will believe in you." We answered, "You ask too little. We will not make the devil appear but vanish from the whole world. We will chase him from your dreams. The devil is ignorance, darkness, chaotic thought, and deformity. Awake, sleeper of the Middle Ages. See you not that it is day? See you not the light of God filling all nature? Where now will the destroyed prince of perdition dare to show himself?" Shall I check in with the chat? Yeah, this has been solid. Hello, Athena. Good to see you guys. Please don't forget to hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. We're demonetized, so all of our support we get from our audience, which is an amazing group of people. It remains for us to state our conclusions and to define the end and application of this work in the religious and philosophical order, and in the order of positive and material realizations. As regards the religious order, we have demonstrated that the practices of religious worships cannot be indifferent, that the magic of religions is in their rites, that their moral force is in their triadic hierarchy, and that the base principle and synthesis of the hierarchy is unity. Napkins? Okay. We have demonstrated the universal unity and orthodoxy of dogma, closed successively with various allegorical veils, and we have followed the truth saved by Moses from profanation in Egypt, preserved in the Kabbalah of the prophets, emancipated by the Christian school from the slavery of the Pharisees, attracting all the poetic and generous aspirations of Greek and Roman civilization, protesting against a new Pharisaism, which I assume is Pharaoh, rule, more corrupt than the first, and the great saints of the Middle Ages and the bold thinkers of the Renaissance. We have exhibited, I say, that truth always universal, always living, alone conciliating reason and faith, science and submission, the truth of being demonstrated by being, of harmony demonstrated by harmony, of reason manifested by reason. By revealing for the first time to the world the mysteries of magic, we have not sought to revive practices entombed beneath the ruins of ancient civilizations, but would say to humanity in our day that it is also called to create itself immortal and omnipotent by its works. Liberty does not offer itself, it must be seized, says a modern writer. It is the same with science, for which reason to divulge absolute truth is never useful to the vulgar. But at an epoch when the sanctuary has been devastated and has fallen into ruins, because its key has been thrown over the hedges to the profit of no one, I have deemed it my duty to pick up that key, and I offer it to him who can take it. In his turn, he will be doctor of the nations and liberator of the world. Fables and leading strings are needed and will always be needed by children. But it is not necessary that those who hold the leading strings should also be children, lending a ready ear to fables. Let the most absolute science, let the highest reason become the possession of the chiefs of the people. Let the priestly art and the royal art take up once more the double scepter of antique initiations, and the world will reissue from chaos. Burn no more holy images, destroy no more temples. Temples and images are necessary for man, but drive out the merchants from the house of prayer. Let the blind no longer be leaders of the blind. Reconstruct the hierarchy of intelligence and holiness, and recognize only those who know as the teachers of those who believe. Our book is Catholic, and if the revelations it contains are likely to alarm the conscience of the simple, we are consoled by the thought that they will not read them. We write for unprejudiced men and have no wish to flatter irreligion any more than fanaticism. If there be anything essentially free and inviolable in the world, it is belief. By science and persuasion, we must endeavor to lead bewrayed imaginations from the absurd, but it would be investing their errors with all the dignity and truth of the martyr to either threaten or constrain them. Faith is nothing but superstition and folly, if it have not reason for its basis. We cannot suppose that which we do not know except by analogy with what we do know. To define what we are unacquainted with is presumptuous ignorance. To affirm positively that one does not know is to lie. To affirm positively what one does not know is to lie. So is faith an aspiration and a desire. So be it. I desire it to be so. Such is the last word of all professions of faith. Faith, hope, and charity are three such inseparable sisters that they can be taken one for another. Thus, in religion, universal and hierarchic orthodoxy, restoration of temples in all their splendor, reestablishment of all ceremonies in their primitive pomp, hierarchic instruction of symbols, mysteries, miracles, legends for children, light for grown men, who will beware of scandalizing little ones in the simplicity of their faith. This, in religion, is our whole utopia, and it is also the desire and need of humanity. Coming now to philosophy, our own is that of realism and positivism. Being is by reason of the being of which no one doubts. All exists for us by science. To know is to be. Science and its object become identified in the intellectual life of him who knows. To doubt is to be ignorant. Now, a thing of which we are ignorant does not as yet exist for us. To live intellectually is to learn. Being develops and amplifies by science. The first conquest of science and the first result of the exact sciences is a sentiment of reason. The laws of nature are algebraic. Thus, the sole reasonable faith is the adhesion of the student to theorems, the entire essential justice of which is outside his knowledge, though its application and results are sufficiently demonstrated to his mind. Thus, the true philosopher believes in what is and does not admit a posteriori that all is reasonable. But no more charlatanism in philosophy, no more empiricism, no more system. The study of being and its compared realities, a metaphysic of nature, then away with mysticism. No more dreams in philosophy. Philosophy is not a poesy, but the pure mathematics of realities, physical and moral. Leave unto religion the freedom of its infinite aspirations, and let it leave in turn to science the exact conclusions of absolute experimentalism. So one of the important things that he's pointing out here is that there really is a sort of moral code that is like an emergent property of the other laws of the universe. That the best economic and political systems can be determined algorithmically. It's not a matter of opinion. All of these arguments over communism, socialism, capitalism, whatever ism, schism game you want to fight about are just distractions, because the reality is that these things are, simple mathematical formulas that would derive the answers to all of these questions that have plagued humanity. Philosophy is no different. Mathematics underlies everything, and therefore there's a correct solution to any problem. Opinion has been made queen of this world in order to foment confusion. Man is the son of his works. He is what he wills to be. He is the image of the God he makes. He is the realization of his ideal. Should his ideal want basis, the whole edifice of his immortality collapses. Philosophy is not the ideal, but it serves as a foundation for the ideal. The known is for us the measure of the unknown. By the visible, we appreciate the invisible. Sensations are to thoughts, even as thoughts to aspirations. Science is a celestial trigonometry. One of the sides of the absolute triangle is the nature which is submitted to our investigations. The second is our soul, which embraces and reflects nature. The third is the absolute, in which our soul enlarges. No more atheism possible henceforward, for we no longer pretend to define God. God is for us the most perfect and best of intelligent beings, and the ascending hierarchy of beings sufficiently demonstrates his existence. That's what Michael Levin basically has implied with his light cone theory, where it's like the most fundamental level of intelligence is a particle, and then you scale that up to chemicals, and then you scale that up to single-celled organisms, and so on, and then you arrive at a planet, say, as a system of intelligence with some sort of goal. And we stop where our awareness ends, but it is reasonable to assume that these light cones continue to enlarge, and that's basically what he's saying here. Do not let us ask for more, but to be ever understanding him better, let us grow perfect by ascending towards him. No more ideology, being is being, and cannot perfectionize save according to the real laws of being. Observe, cannot perfectionize except according to the real laws of being. Observe and do not prejudge. Exercise our faculties, do not falsify them. Enlarge the domain of life in life, behold truth in truth. Everything is possible to him who wills only what is true. Rest in nature, study, know, then dare. Dare to will, dare to act, and be silent. No more hatred of anyone. Everyone reaps what he sows. The consequence of work is fatal, and to judge and chastise the wicked is for the supreme reason. He who enters into a blind alley must retrace his steps or be broken. Warn him gently, if he can still hear you, but human liberty must take its course. We are not the judges of one another. Life is a battlefield. Do not pause in the fighting on account of those who fall, but avoid trampling them. Then comes the victory, and the wounded on both sides become brothers by suffering, and before humanity will meet in the ambulances of the conquerors. Such are the consequences of the philosophical dogma of Hermes. Such has been from all time the ethic of true adepts. Such is the philosophy of the Rosicrucian inheritors of all the ancient wisdoms. Such is the secret doctrine of these associations that are treated as subversive of the public order and have been ever accused of conspiring against thrones and altars. Sound familiar? The true adept, far from disturbing the public order, is its firmest supporter. He has too great a respect for liberty to desire anarchy. Child of light, he loves harmony and knows that darkness begets confusion. He accepts everything that is and denies only what is not. He wills true religion, practical, universal, full of faith, palpable, realized in all life. He wills it to have a wise and powerful priesthood, surrounded by all the virtues and all the prestige of faith. He wills the universal orthodoxy, the absolute, hierarchic, apostolic, sacramental, incontestable, and uncontested Catholicity. He wills an experimental philosophy, real, mathematical, modest in its conclusions, untiring in its researches, scientific in its progress. Who therefore can be against us if God and reason are with us? Does it matter if man prejudge and slander us? Our entire justification is in our thoughts and our works. We come not, like Oedipus, to destroy the Sphinx of symbolism. We seek, on the contrary, to resuscitate it. The Sphinx devours only blind interpreters, and he who slays it has not known how to divine it properly. It must be subdued and chained and compelled to follow us. The Sphinx is the living palladium of humanity. It is the conquest of the king of Thebes. It would have been the salvation of Oedipus had Oedipus completely divined its enigma. In the positive and material order, what must be concluded from this work? Is magic a force which science may abandon to the boldest and wickedest? Is it a cheat and falsehood of those who are skilled in fascinating the ignorant and feeble? Is the philosophical mercury the exploitation of credulity by address? Those who have understood us know already how to answer these questions. In these days, magic can be no longer the art of fascinations and illusions. Those only who wish to be deceived can be deceived now. But the narrow and rash incredulity of the last century is denied in totality by nature herself. We are environed with prophecies and miracles. Doubt once unwisely denied them. Now science explains them. No, Monsieur le Comte de Merville, a destroyed spirit is not allowed to disturb the empire of God. No things unknown cannot be explained by things impossible. Yeah, a destroyed spirit is not allowed to disturb the empire of God. The whole thing of demon possession and entity attachment and all that. No invisible beings are not permitted to deceive, torment, seduce, and even kill the living creatures of God, men already so ignorant and scarcely able to combat their own delusions. That's what I'm saying. Like, if there were these things harassing people, we would all be doomed because it's such an unfair fight. Those who told you all this in your childhood, Monsieur Leconte, have deceived you. And if you were child enough once to listen to them, be man enough now to disbelieve them. Gangster. Man is himself the creator of his heaven and hell, and there are no demons except our own follies. Minds chastised by truth are corrected by the chastisement and dream no more of disturbing the world. If Satan exists, he can only be the most unfortunate, most ignorant, most humiliated, and most impotent of beings. The existence of a universal agent of life, of a living fire, of an astral light is demonstrated by facts. Magnetism enables us to understand today the miracles of old magic. The facts of second sight, aspirations, sudden cures, thought reading are now admitted and familiar things even among our children. But the tradition of the ancients has been lost. Discoveries have been regarded as new. The last word is sought about observed phenomena. Minds grow excited over meaningless manifestations. Fascinations are experienced without being understood. We say, therefore, to table turners, these prodigies are not novel. You can perform even greater wonders if you study the laws of nature. And what will follow a new acquaintance with these powers? A new career open to the activity and intelligence of man, the battle of life reorganized with arms more perfect and the possibility restored to the flower of intelligence of once more becoming the masters of all destinies by providing true priests and great kings for the world to come. Here ends the ritual of transcendent magic. Transcendent magic. That last bit of that book couldn't have been better, really, in my opinion. That was epic. So there you have it, guys. Let's see, actually, if there's a little bit more in here. What is this? Is there more? Yeah, hold on. Let's see what this is. Supplement to the ritual. The Noctumeron of Apollonius of Tyana. We'll do that next time. All right, guys. I guess that's mostly it. I didn't see any questions or comments in the chat, so I guess we have one more chapter to go because maybe we'll do it as like a separate thing, but I do want to see what that book is, and we might as well do it together. So please hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron if you're not already. There are options to support the channel in the chat as well. And I might pop on for another stream tonight because last night was the anniversary of Jerry Garcia's 30th anniversary of his death, and I was going to do a stream, but then my monitors quit working, and now they're working again. So in a couple hours, might pop back on with some music and some tales on that subject. And then our retreat is winding down, so I will be back in full force next week. And there's an awful lot to talk about. There's all kinds of amazing things happening in the world. There's lots of crazy, threatening things happening in the world. It's all extraordinary, and we need to keep abreast and on top of it all, if possible. So cheers, guys. I appreciate you all. Thanks for spending this time.